You know, usually when we talk about fixing something broken, there's this expectation of like mechanical precision.
Right, like getting an X-ray.
Exactly. You break your arm, the x-ray shows the jagged white line, and boom. The doctor points at it, puts a cast on it, and it's done. The problem and the solution are both tangible, which is really comforting.
Oh, totally. But that binary view just completely fails the moment we step into the world of human psychology.
Yeah, because there is no x-ray machine for a negative mental loop.
Exactly. When you're trying to reprogram a subconscious bias, that diagnostic clarity is gone. We end up navigating this landscape of self-help and spirituality that is, honestly, it's often incredibly murky and heavily intellectualized.
And totally disconnected from the actual realities of daily survival. Which brings us to the mission for you, the listener, in today's deep dive. We are going to completely strip away the mystical intimidation surrounding mantras and incantations.
Yes, and I am so excited for this one.
Me too. Our source material today is a really fascinating presentation by Osman, who is widely known online as the Blind Muslim Yogi. He occupies this super interesting intersection of disciplines.
He really does. I mean, he's an energy healer and a meditation teacher. But, crucially, he is also an entrepreneur with 29 years of hard-fought experience.
A real boots-on-the-ground perspective. Now, real quick, before we dive into his methods, we should relay Osman's upfront medical disclaimer.
Right. Very important. He explicitly states that natural therapies and mindset tools are not replacements for licensed medical treatment. They are supplementary frameworks for the mind, not substitutes for clinical care.
Exactly. So keeping that framework in mind, Osman's core argument is profoundly pragmatic. He argues that you do not need to, like, climb a remote mountain or seek out a guru to alter your mental programming.
No mountain climbing required.
Nope. We're going to explore how simple, everyday English phrases and even your workout playlist can effectively rewire your subconscious. But to do that, we first have to dismantle the myth of the secret mantra.
Oh, the pop culture mysticism surrounding that word is just so heavy.
It really is. Most people picture these ancient, closely guarded Sanskrit syllables.
Right. There's this assumption that these specific words contain, like, inherent magical frequencies, and that they have to be gifted to you by a spiritual master from a distinct lineage to even work.
But Osman attacks that assumption with a really grounded statistic. He points out that even at the most famous, highly reputed spiritual retreats globally, the success rate is 90% at best.
Which is great, but that remaining 10% is where the entire mystical narrative falls apart.
Right, because for 1 in 10 people, those ancient, meticulously pronounced syllables will have absolutely zero psychological effect. They just won't sync up with the practitioner.
No matter how authentic the teacher is.
Exactly. It makes me think of how we treat traditional mantras like this exclusive Wi-Fi password to the universe. Like, if you don't possess the exact alphanumeric string, you're completely locked out of the network.
It has a perfect analogy.
So, if the power doesn't reside in the ancient vocabulary, what actually gives an incantation its psychological leverage?
Well, the leverage comes from the intersection of repetition and intense personal resonance. If you look at human cognition, the default mode network in our brain is constantly generating this chaotic stream of random, usually anxiety-inducing thoughts.
Just constant background noise.
Exactly. So an incantation doesn't need mystical origins to fix that. It just acts as a focal mission. It's a linguistic tool to cut through that noise.
Okay. So if the phrase lacks personal or emotional resonance for you, it can't override the background chatter.
Spot on. Which perfectly explains that 10% failure rate at the intensive retreats.
It functions more like a cognitive circuit breaker than a magical spell. It physically interrupts the rumination loop.
Yes, exactly.
So if the power relies on personal resonance rather than ancient syllables, what does a highly personalized mantra actually look like in the real world? Osman gives us a perfect case study through his own 29-year entrepreneurial journey.
Which, by the way, was anything but a smooth upward trajectory.
Oh, not at all.
He is remarkably transparent about the sheer volume of failure he went through. Over nearly 3 decades, he estimates 90% of his time was spent in the intense pain of failure.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah, only a 10% margin of actual success and financial freedom. I mean, he navigated market crashes, severe financial crises, the COVID lockdowns.
He specifically highlights this grueling 6-year period where he was just struggling to reach a baseline of normality, not even aiming for wealth, just trying to achieve the stability of a standard 9-to-5 employee.
6 years of continuous survival mode. That would break almost anyone's psychological resolve.
Seriously. To endure that level of sustained cortisol and panic, he needed a mental lever. And during his darkest periods, his specific incantation wasn't a Sanskrit chant. It was the phrase, "My future's so bright, I got to wear shades."
I love that so much. It completely subverts our expectations of what spiritual vocabulary should be.
But I mean, it sounds exactly like the lyric from that cheesy 80s pop song by Timbuk 3.
Because it is.
Right, it's so casual and colloquial. From a psychological standpoint, why does a phrase that casual actually work to reprogram a mind facing severe financial ruin? You'd think the brain would reject something so lighthearted.
Well, the apparent cheesiness is actually the secret weapon here. To understand why, we have to look at state-dependent memory and neuroplasticity.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, Osman is originally from South Africa.
Lots of sunshine.
Exactly, a region characterized by abundant sunshine. And he explicitly notes how much he loves wearing beautiful, high-quality sunglasses. So when he repeats that phrase, it's not some abstract intellectual exercise.
It triggers a profound somatic marker.
Yes, he's essentially tricking his nervous system. By invoking the imagery of sunshine and the physical sensation of wearing shades, he is firing the neurons associated with warmth, coolness, and visceral joy.
Oh, wow. So he's chemically interrupting the stress response.
Precisely. When you're facing financial ruin, the brain is flooded with cortisol, narrowing your focus to immediate threats. Abstract spiritualism often fails there because a panicked brain cannot process complex philosophy.
But a sensory memory, like the feeling of the sun on your face, that bypasses the logical panic.
It proves the subconscious mind is way more receptive to relatable, sensory-based joy than to esoteric concepts.
And he didn't just sit there repeating it 1,000 times a day like a robot either. He used it strategically.
Right, whenever the negative thought loop began to spiral, he would deploy the phrase to snap the circuit.
And the fact that he didn't invent the phrase shows that you don't have to create a mantra from scratch. You can just act as a curator of existing philosophies as long as they carry emotional weight for you.
He strongly advocates for this kind of curation. He uses simple proverbs as incantations too, like, "There's someone for everyone," or "There's always light at the end of the tunnel."
Because they're deeply ingrained in our collective understanding.
Exactly. They require very little cognitive load to process.
He also borrows from modern motivational figures. One that really stands out is his use of a Bob Proctor incantation. "I'm so happy and grateful that money comes to me in multiple sources of income on a continuous and daily basis."
But what is so compelling there is Osman's vulnerability. He openly admits to his audience that he hasn't fully achieved that reality yet.
Right. He has multiple businesses, but the passive income streams haven't fully materialized the way the mantra describes.
Which forces us to ask, if the outcome hasn't happened, is the tool defective?
But Osman's approach suggests we're fundamentally misunderstanding the purpose of the phrase. It's not an esoteric spell to manifest money out of thin air. It functions as a primer for the reticular activating system.
The brain's spam filter.
Exactly. By constantly repeating that he has multiple sources of income, he's instructing his subconscious to flag any opportunity related to passive income as vital information.
Instead of just filtering it out as background noise, it keeps his attention locked onto the goal, preventing him from giving up during those 90% failure periods.
It creates a state of active readiness. But while that business mantra is super focused on a specific outcome, his core philosophical incantation deals with the nature of reality itself.
Yes, he anchors his mindset on this one inescapable truth. It is impossible for a situation to remain constant.
He's internalizing the philosophy of impermanence, reminding himself that life inherently moves in waves. Negative situations absolutely must be followed by positive ones.
Because biological and physical permanence is just impossible.
Right. But the really fascinating pivot he makes is reminding himself that it is equally impossible for positive situations to remain permanent. The sunshine will inevitably be followed by the rain.
And how do you interpret that intentional focus on the decay of positive states?
Well, at first glance, it seems entirely counterproductive.
Yeah, totally.
When you're in a dark tunnel, reminding yourself of the impending light is a vital survival mechanism. But actively reminding yourself that your moments of joy are fleeting, it feels like inviting a storm into a clear sky.
It does feel a bit pessimistic.
But looking at it through a broader lens, he is essentially hacking the hedonic treadmill. He's intentionally introducing stoic negative visualization so he doesn't become complacent when the dopamine hits.
That is a highly precise way to categorize it. He's short-circuiting the human biological tendency to project our current emotional state into infinity.
We always think how we feel right now is how we'll feel forever.
Exactly. From an evolutionary standpoint, when we experience a threat, our brain assumes it's permanent to force immediate action. We feel despair. Conversely, when we achieve a positive outcome, the brain floods us with dopamine and we assume the safety is permanent.
Which breeds arrogance and complacency. We stop innovating because we believe we've permanently won.
Exactly.
So by systematically reminding himself that the positive will eventually give way to new challenges, Osman completely neutralizes the arrogance of success. He forces himself to stay sharp and humble.
And simultaneously, by acknowledging that the negative can't last forever, he neutralizes the paralyzing panic of failure.
The result is this incredible framework of grounded resilience. You don't have to ride that exhausting emotional roller coaster.
You can engage with the joy of a success without desperately clinging to it. And you can endure the crushing weight of a failure without internalizing it as a permanent identity.
It creates a highly balanced, energized mind capable of navigating a 29-year career. So we've deconstructed the Sanskrit myth, looked at quirky phrases like the sunglasses mantra, and explored Stoic impermanence.
But Osman actually pushes the boundary even further. He strips away the linguistic element entirely.
Yes, he introduces this highly modern, universally accessible concept, the external incantation.
It represents a brilliant democratization of the entire practice. Osman argues that an incantation doesn't have to be spoken words at all. It can be an immersive auditory activity.
Specifically high-energy gym music.
Yeah. He uses hour-long mixes of motivational workout music on platforms like YouTube. And he knows how listening to them continuously completely revolutionizes his physiological and psychological state during exercise.
He's basically treating a YouTube playlist as a subconscious pacemaker. The concept of entrainment applies perfectly here.
Oh, 100%. When you expose your brain to a consistent, driving auditory rhythm, your brain waves, heart rate, and respiration actually begin to sync with that external beat.
The music acts as an incantation pumped directly into the nervous system, bypassing conscious thought entirely. It dictates the rhythm of your energy.
He describes it as an external source actively altering your psychology. And if we accept this definition, that an incantation is simply any repetitive stimulus that fundamentally shifts your emotional state, we arrive at a rather startling conclusion about our daily environment.
We really do. Because it implies that we are already utilizing incantations all day, every day, entirely by accident.
Yes.
If an hour of driving bass can elevate your resilience, then any external audio source or repetitive media we consume is actively programming our subconscious. It's heavily dependent on the ambient information we passively consume.
The critical distinction between an intentional practice like Osman's workout music or his shades phrase and the random chaos of modern life comes down to agency.
Who is in control?
Exactly. When you deliberately select high-energy music, you are acting as the architect of your own cognitive programming. You control the input. When you relinquish that agency, you allow the external environment to program your emotional baseline by default.
So, synthesizing Osman's nearly 3 decades of entrepreneurial battles, the ultimate takeaway for you listening right now is absolute empowerment.
You do not require an expensive flight to a remote retreat that only guarantees a 90% success rate.
And you don't need to master the pronunciation of ancient syllables to fundamentally rewire your approach to adversity. The biological mechanisms of neuroplasticity and state-dependent memory are already fully operational inside your brain.
You just need to supply the machinery with the correct raw material. Identify the phrases and sensory inputs that carry genuine emotional weight for you.
You just need to find your own version of the sunglasses phrase. What is that highly specific, maybe slightly cheesy sentence that instantly summons a physiological feeling of joy and capability for you?
Or, what auditory landscape can you curate to act as your external pacemaker, intentionally driving your daily energy? The subconscious mind is always recording. The only variable you control is who currently holds the microphone.
But recognizing that constant state of recording leads to a vital self-audit, we've focused a lot on active, positive programming today.
We have. But if the functional definition of an incantation is simply repeated exposure that alters your emotional state, we have to look at the other side.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with the final provocative question to analyze your own environment. What are the passive, everyday noises or media habits you are currently exposing yourself to without a second thought?
It demands an examination of the unintentional inputs.
Are there negative incantations playing on a loop in the background of your life right now? Consider the 24-hour news cycle continuously broadcasting disaster scenarios into your living room.
Or a specific algorithmic social media feed that consistently leaves you feeling a sense of lack.
Or even something as mundane as the chronic daily complaining of a colleague that you passively absorb every single morning.
Neurobiologically speaking, the brain does not differentiate between a sacred chant and a repeated complaint.
Wow, that is heavy.
It is. Both utilize repetition and emotional resonance to encode neural pathways.
Hmm.
Those passive negative inputs are programming your subconscious resilience just as effectively as Osman's mantras, but they're driving the machinery in the exact opposite direction.
Think back to our opening analogy about the X-ray machine. We established that the mindset landscape is murky because we can't just point to a fractured bone on a screen.
But perhaps the diagnostic process isn't as invisible as we assumed.
Perhaps the true X-ray of your current mindset is simply a printed list of the playlists you stream, the feeds you scroll, and the casual phrases you repeat when the pressure mounts.
If the wrong ambient noise can silently erode your resilience over time,
How quickly and dramatically could you heal your reality just by actively deciding to change the station?